Hello and welcome to Wo Money Ki Baat, an ongoing series that truly intends to put the spotlight on how women are changing the way they look at money and using this entire element of investing as a road to independence. Joining me now is Sidharth Damani from Aditya Birla Sun Life Mutual Fund. Thanks very much, Sidharth. Good to have you with
Thank
us.
you. Same here.
Let's really dive into the very critical issue. Post COVID, there's been sort of a big question mark on how are people going to have their investing trends? Will it impact how women have approached investing? What are you viewing about this?
Yes, Shaili, you're so right. Of course, the last year and a half has been difficult. It's something which no one envisaged coming. And what's great, I've seen women have played an extremely important part in this whole volatile times. Just to build a narrative in terms of how women have actually approached, and especially when you sit at a home setup and family members talking to each other. I think what really comes out is that the investment motivations for a women are distinct, and they've been very, very value based. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because they're very goal oriented when it comes to the topic of money. And through this series of Wo Money Ki Baat, what we are very cognizant about these areas. And I'm sure all of us here, in terms of when it comes to a household thing, the major decisions are taken by men when it comes to money, etc. But in these times, with so much discussion happening, and of course people going through tough times, I think money financial management has become an extremely important discussion. And it's good to hear, and we've done so many researches that the women, in terms of getting more and more participative in this, has been extremely important. And by this, what I'm trying to say is not that we're trying to patronize women, but what we want to do is to encourage them to be more participative. And I think that clearly comes out. And we clearly see today that the participation, if it can happen in every sphere of life, whether it's education, politics, media, why can't it happen when it comes to being financially independent? And I think that's what is clearly visible in these times. There have been, and through your forum itself, we've seen there have been live scenarios relevant to women bringing inspiring stories. And I think that's on an uptrend for sure. And and we are very, very encouraged to see the way women as investors also earlier, who were shying away from this topic, at least this has become a discussion point at a home, and not only at home, but also when we see it in a corporate setup amongst colleagues. So that's pretty encouraging.
You had earlier mentioned how women have always traditionally had different motivations when it comes to investing. Talk about the kind of change you have seen on that front, from gold to mutual funds and other avenues.
Okay, so Shaili, as I mentioned that, let me deep dive a bit more on this. It's a known fact, when we see women, I actually feel, and I can spend some more time on that, are pretty research oriented, and prone to engage in extensive research. From a forget about investments. I think let's talk about when you're buying a phone, and of course, there are thousands of phones to choose, but you certainly see there that they're pretty clear in terms of what kind of phone or instrument they want. And that also moves to various other things which we've seen. So specifically, with regards to what I feel is, once they are very, very clear in their understanding and the expected outcome, the goal that the investment is going to fulfill for them. When we talk about investments, I'm sure that we've seen enough of instances where they stick to the plan and do it in a disciplined way. And I think that naturally comes to women, as I see. Specifically to mutual fund, in the last year and a half, we did some surveys, and I'll be very happy to share with you that we've got an investment solution called systematic investment plan, where you can invest as low as 500 rupees every month. And we did this research almost 2 months back, where women are more prone to start their first SIP at the age of 20, against men who do it later. And this is actual data when we did it amongst a large base of investors, our investors, and also prospects. And what's very heartening piece of information here is that if you give the right access to knowledge, women as investors can start pretty early. And I would just like to take you back. We've seen I've seen various generations, my grandmother and my mother. They've been also doing investments. Maybe they may be traditional way into physical assets, what my grandmother did or my mother did in something like financial asset, like a bank fixed deposit. But this has been on. So what we've seen as a trend also, where women investing in gold in terms of jewelry, the trend in terms of investing into digital gold, not only through mutual funds but other financial avenues also, is on a rise. And I think that's extremely encouraging. And what's helping mutual funds also is that the whole digitalization thing which has happened. I think no one used to talk about UPI or a digital way of transacting through a Google Pay and these other entities. But today, I think it's something which is given, that I want to pay, and it's so seamless. So why it should not start into mutual funds, where again we've been promoting a lot of stuff digitally, and also thanks to a lot of fintechs who made it so simple and also so educative. So so net what I would like to say is that yes, according to me, the trust is getting established, and women are leaning more towards the right advice. And if there's a right advisor giving the right advice, the acceptability, according to me, of Shaili is on a rise. And that's very, very encouraging in an industry which is so underpenetrated. There's just close to 2.6, 2.7 crore unique investors, including women. So I'm sure that women have an extremely important part to play in terms of investing into mutual funds for their set of goals. And as I mentioned earlier, we've seen in the past that it's not that any kind of investment is not happening. And we saw in pandemic also, Shaili, that the kind of cash which was hidden in the right spirit, I'm saying, and which came to use when times are going tough.
That's true. You said something that's sticking with me about this whole idea that when you inspire women to pick up investing and think of it as something that's a part of their routine, they have shown signs of taking that step far earlier, much before younger age than men. Now, this is really critically linked to how important it is for mutual funds to really talk with women about money. uh, how did you come up with this idea, that today, as a mutual fund, you would like to invest in the female market?
So with regards to it, this is something which we, as an organization, sat through and had serious discussions, that there's no one size fits all. And I think everyone has their own needs. And when you talk about women specifically, we must remember that women's financial needs and choices are very, very distinct, Shaili, because it's also important to see that in what stage of life they are in. And women are attuned and aligned to to the financial choices with their value system. And I think the reason I'm mentioning this is because there's a family, there's a child. Also you need to talk about, if you're a working woman, retirement. So taking this into consideration, one cannot emphasize enough how important financial independence is. And for us, as as a money manager, as a brand, it's extremely important to segment this part of the population, and not just say that we look at everyone with the same lens. And what's extremely crucial, and as a nation also, to encourage financialization of our country and create awareness. Now, I'm getting a bit technical, but I think the reason I'm mentioning this is that as a society, we need to normalize the discussion of money. And I think the reason I'm mentioning this is, Shaili, that it may be viewed today that it is not some passcode or a key or something which should be restricted to a very very few people. I think there has to be involvement of women in this. And what's extremely important for mutual funds like us, to drive various series like this one, as we are talking today, to have impactful investor awareness. And thanks to our regulator SEBI, I think they've set aside specific funds for investor education. So we thought, why should some part of it should not be we should not be spending on women as a category. And our thought process is pretty clear that financial empowerment begins with awareness and education. And I think we've seen it in all aspects of life. And we believe that instilling this power of financial education amongst women is extremely important. But I think what is required here is the whole simplicity in communication and not making it very very complex. And when
Yeah.
you do this, I'm sure that we will see more and more participation coming, because as I said, one size does not fit all. And if there's a compelling reason that why one should be looking at these kind of investments or wealth creating tools, I'm sure that we can do much more. And just to share with you, mutual funds, we've been saying it for long, it has solutions for any and everyone from cradle to grave. Why it should be only restricted to a select few, for a selected few in terms of goals also.
So one very important aspect of how people are encouraged to make a shift in culture, behavior, and mindset is how we tell their stories. Earlier, you were talking about how important it is to talk about inspiring stories. Why do you think today communication on complex issues like finance has become very, very important and can potentially bring the change that you've been talking about?
So, Sherry, I've spent almost 23 years in the industry. And what I remember, my first boss used to always tell me that, you actually think when you're going to be successful is when you're able to simplify the whole thing. And as finance experts, we try to add a lot of jargons and a lot of technicality, which at times a investor certainly feel that no, this is so complex, because when one is used to certain traditional way of investment, of course they have their own advantages. But when you talk about something which is market linked, or which is which can be a bit volatile at times. But as I said, that mutual funds also today have products which are relatively safe and consistent. And there are products which also complement what you've been keep doing with your money, with regards to just keeping in a bank account, in a savings account. You have liquid funds where you can park into your emergency funds, or something which you may need in the next 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. So I think, as I said, all kind of products are available, or solutions, I would say solutions are available. The thing is about the whole packaging and the whole communication, which one individual feels that yes, if I have this goal, short term, medium term, long term, yes, there is a solution available. Then just trying to say that mutual funds is only about investing into high risky assets like equity, and high risk equals to losses at times, but of course I gain. But just to share with you, what's more important today is the whole asset allocation piece. And I think that something is extremely important. But as I started, if you can simplify it, and that resonates rightfully with the investor and women in specific, I'm sure that it goes a long way. But as I talk to you, I'll be very candid enough that yes, a lot of effort has gone into simplifying communication, but I'm sure we can do much more. And so that it's just to share with you, the challenge which I throw to my team is, when everyone is on a mobile today, can I create a communication and and deliver a message, in one or two scrolls in my mobile. What's the point of coming with tons of pages on a certain thing? So I think simplifying and at the same time making it impactful is extremely important, and that's where we are working towards. And we've come a long way, but of course, still more ground to gain there.
No, absolutely. And I think that's a good point that you talked about risk in a great way. What's your assessment as a mutual fund about the kind of risk conversation that women are doing? At one level, they're willing to start earlier with SIPs. But do you think there's also this sort of fear factor that emerges because we don't talk enough about the risk factors, both the positive and the negative?
You're right. So it's so important, and as I alluded some time back, Shelly, I think according to me, risk is something which one needs to be aware. But it all starts with the whole planning the goal. It can never be impulsive or saying something that X, Y, or Z has done it, so I should be doing it. As I said, everyone has their own risk tolerance level, and at the same time different goals. And what I've seen that since we're on this topic, when it comes to planning for goals and following the plan, yes, in certain studies and certain research which I've read, quite a few women do a great job, and it comes naturally. And what extremely becomes important is, as I mentioned some time back, is the whole asset allocation. That yes, physical assets are also important, and so called as I talk about the financial assets, and everything goes through in high and low. But I think it's extremely important, Cherry, that you sensitize about the fact that when one invests, there are risks involved. We've seen that something which is very very safe and gives you a fixed return in the recent past also has not delivered, like certain company fixed deposits also, which used to be considered safe. But then I'm not trying to say that one should not be investing, but one should be also right, after an informed decision taking, that is it right for me? And there I think an advisor becomes a very very crucial part. There is an advisory required, the way for anything we go to a doctor or a lawyer or a chartered accountant. Of course, advisory is important, and I think that's what I feel in the industry. The advisors have done a great job in terms of making sure that when it's a bit rocky, there is there's a right advice given to the customer, and there's a return expectation which is there. And what I firmly believe that specifically with regards to this whole volatility part, if you build trust, and ensure that the right advice is given, it's it sends a very very positive vibe to anyone. And markets can go through up and downs, but when you stick to your goal and revisit wherever required, it's also very important to revisit your where you are in terms of what you've achieved in your goals. I think that
Yeah.
itself will make that journey uh, much more smoother and comfortable.
So, you talked about goal setting and you also talked about advisors. Now, this is something that most people are often confused about. Why do I need an advisor? Should I read, or should I really not want to get into a complexity? Sometimes there's a trust gap also, having an advisor, somebody else's perspective. Can you try and break that down? Because I believe a lot of women, literally, like you said, would go to a doc, would go to a specialist, would go to a tailor for everything that they need otherwise in life. But there's this sort of a sense of discomfort that I should not talk money with somebody else.
Yeah, it's and I think that's how you know the setup has been till now. But let's also understand that it's it is the world is getting a bit complex when you see a lot of volatility which sets in various ways, either it's in pandemic or something else, which one is faced with. So what's more important is, as I alluded earlier, is the whole thing about ensuring that you don't stick to one thing and then later repent that why did I do. It's good to diversify, Shelly. And there it's there is this question comes that why do I need an advisor. But it's the advisor who finally ensures, he or she ensures that he or she understands what's the goal, what's the risk appetite of that individual, and then suggest what one should be doing. Of course, as I said, this has to be revisited from time to time. But specifically with regards to women, we've seen that at times, which I talked about some time back, and again coming to certain things which I've read recently and the research which we are privy to, is I think we are trying to make Shelly, a lot of impulsive sort of a buying or selling when it comes to maybe stocks or mutual funds, depending on how the market is. But take my word that such impulsive thing has a certain limit in terms of where you can do it. But it can't give you success any and every time. Just to share, today, as we are talking, markets are in a volatile situation. Of course, some time back, when the market was going up, people had a missed out feeling that why have I not invested. If I would have invested, I would have made more money. And because why, people were waiting for a correction to come. So if the right advice was there in terms of ensuring that why don't you invest in an SIP, as I talked to you some time back. At least you'll be able to build your investments during the ups and downs of the market. And that can be a great thing. So that's what I say. We tried, it turns out to be that this is something very complex. But when it comes to investments, there are certain solutions like SIP and others, which can be very, very well used to weather this volatility in the market, and at the same time, achieve your goals in whichever stage of life you are in. And what's more important is sticking to it.
Just to wrap this up, I wanted to know, how are you making this an important mission for yourself at Aditya Birla, and most importantly, how can we get men involved in this conversation, because it's not a women's issue, and in fact, traditionally, often men have been sort of suggested to that they need to also talk about shifting that responsibility from just being a man's job to any person's job.
You're so right, Shelly. I think there are enough of examples where, it's at times it's only the women. We've seen that the investment decision is decided, and you have to just cut the check or sign the check or sign the form, and those decisions are taken. So what's extremely important, and I think, Shelly, what we've seen in during the pandemic times, where I think this discussion started happening, that are we insured? Do we have a life insurance? Do we have a medical insurance? Because I think there are enough of those horror stories in terms of people dipping into their lifelong savings to meet the hospital bills. And what's I think what positive, I'm not trying to just take it away in terms of what hardships people would have gone through, but at least these discussions have started happening, that how much money we have, how much emergency funds we have, are we insured, is there, do we have a medical insurance. At least it should not just die off from here when things are gradually coming back to normal. This has to be a discussion point every time to be taken, because it's going to be very, very crucial going forward, where people should be aware. And we've since we deal with so many investors at times, when there's a sad demise of a sole bread earner at home, the wife does not know that where the investments are. So this whole thing about creating that portfolio which is accessible, and number two, it's all about also, people shy away from talking about the will writing or getting women involved. So I think these are things which are extremely important, and especially what we are trying to do through this forum of wo money ki baat, is to just ensure that take care of two things, Shaili. Is one is to build that conducive ecosystem where women are encouraged to participate in financial decision making, and more importantly, second part is empower them with relevant knowledge to give them the confidence and enable them to take informed decisions as a family. And what we've seen through your forum itself, where we've got such inspiring people and stories in terms of some certain sole bread earners of a family of women coming and talking, or a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law, running a business together, or certain of our women mutual fund distributors or advisors, coming about talking about money, and and women talking about it. So I'm sure that it's just a start. But this, what's more important and crucial, is that this conversation has to be ongoing and not limited to certain times, or you know certain periods of life, or the pandemic which we've recently faced.
Indeed, I couldn't agree with you more. And Siddharth, I really appreciate you being very candid and deeply honest about how one needs to approach this as a culture of investing, as opposed to one that is just sort of done as lip service. And in that spirit, there is so much to speak about the importance of recognizing how and why women should be part of all kinds of financial matters at home, at work, in various places. So I really appreciate you joining us here at She the People to talk about Go Money Ki Baat and its genesis. And the good news, which is that this partnership is actually going to continue, because, as Siddharth said, why have a flash in the pan approach? Because this is a market that promises to unleash itself as we go ahead. Closing words from you?
So the closing words from me, Shelly, is it's we are very, very encouraged and excited with this segment of our investors. There's not much been done till now, but we all know that at the pace what the world is moving, what we would have not done in so many years, but I think the next few years are extremely encouraging. And what I just said some time back is about the whole thing about women getting involved in various spheres of life. So why not investment? And just to share with you, today in our organization, Aditya Birla Sun Life AMC, our co-head for fixed income, the lady, the person who manages our fixed income assets or debt funds, is a lady. Her name is Sunaina. Our product head who creates products and communication is also a lady called Medha Kedia. So it's we are seeing itself in terms of women managers and taking these positions, and I'm sure that there are enough of inspiring stories across. And just to take you back, just see in terms of the secondary education or the JE exams or the UPSC, the way women are so successfully going through these competitive setups and coming with flying colors. So I think in that sense, I'm sure this is a real great time to address and ensure that we handhold, communicate, and ride through all spheres of life, specifically for women. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Siddharth. It's always a pleasure. We look forward to much more together in meeting this larger goal of more women investors in the country.